Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. And you have made it. Yes, it is Friday. And of course, here on the podcast, we love to bring you FOMO Friday every single week. And what FOMO Friday is, for those that don't know, is that it's for people who aren't listening to propaganda media anymore, but yet they still want to know what's going on around the world. They want to know a little bit about it. And that's what we do. We bring every single Friday FOMO Friday report, which gives you a little bit about what's going on both in our nation and around the world. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes the very first one, which has been the very biggest one for a week or two now, right? A few weeks. This week, Iran claimed to have formally closed the Strait of Hormuz, the 21-mile-wide checkpoint through which roughly 20% of the world's oil flows every single day. Yeah, 20%. That's huge. 3 more ships, by the way, were also attacked. 2 of them that were flying the Thai flag, and 1 Japanese was struck by what they call unknown projectiles, which is almost certainly reporter speak for Iranian missiles and drones, and they were hit on Wednesday. Well, this brings the total number of vessels attacked since February 28th to at least 14 now. Welcome back to the Persian Gulf, well, circa 1987, right? Back then, Iran targeted tankers carrying oil from countries supplying Saddam's Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War, forcing the Reagan administration to escort reflag Kuwaiti vessels under the U.S. Navy protection, a confrontation that ended with American warships sinking a significant chunk of Iran's fleet in a single day. Well, this, then, is our Back to the Future moment. The Islamic Republic dusty playbook from almost 40 years ago dictates if Tehran can't export oil freely, no one can. Iran's most important security official now put it plainly this week: the strait will either be a strait of peace and prosperity for all, or a strait of defeat and suffering for warmongers, is how he put it. Well, Iranian military elites went further, vowing not to allow a single liter of oil to pass from the benefit for the benefit of America or its allies. Well, since 2019, the IRGC Navy, which is the Iranian top Navy, has been methodically re-upping its threats to freedom of navigation using limpet mines against commercial vessels, seizing tankers and harassing ships through the Persian Gulf. It also exported this threat to its Houthi proxies in the Red Sea, impeding maritime trade in yet another critical waterway after the October 7th, 2023 attack. Now, the mining threats we're now confronting was incubated during the Iran-Iraq War. The last time Iran tried this, it was in 1988. The U.S. Navy responded with Operation Praying Mantis, destroying nearly half of Iran's operational fleet in a single day, the largest American naval surface engagement since World War II, actually. And Tehran blinked, accepted a ceasefire, and then Supreme Leader Ruhollah Khomeini famously compared it to drinking a poison chalice. The lesson was partially written on the wreckage of Iran's vessels. Well, U.S. Central Command moved fast this week, destroying 16 Iranian mine layers near the strait on Tuesday. And by Wednesday, Trump told reporters the number was up to 28. That's real progress, but it's not enough to change the risk calculus for ship owners and, of course, neighboring Arab states. Yet the Iran maritime threat here isn't its conventional fleet, most of which is, of course, now, as Trump put it, at the bottom of the sea, right? He's turned them in all these ships into submarines, right? But it's the hundreds of speedboats and fast attack craft that the IRGC possesses, capable of laying mines faster than they can be hunted down, and destroying a frigate is a photo op, of course. Neutralizing a swarm of cigarette boats is a campaign. That's the hard truth that Trump must reckon with. Threatening death, fire, and fury is great from Truth Social feed, but rhetoric doesn't sweep mines or open shipping lanes. Trump says the escort option is on the table. Ship owners are watching to see if he means it, and he should. The Reagan administration faced a strikingly similar moment in 1987 when Iran was targeting tankers in the Persian Gulf during the tanker war. Reagan's answer was Operation Earnest Will, which involved reflagging Kuwaiti tankers under the American flag and providing them with U.S. naval escorts through the Persian Gulf. It was a direct challenge to Iran maritime aggression, and it worked. The message was clear. The free flow of commerce is a vital American interest, and in the United States, the United States will back the interest with force. Iran, of course, stood down, and Trump is now facing his version of that moment, and it is arguably a harder one, given the scale of the current conflict, the mining threat, the IRGC's asymmetric capabilities. The only way out of this crisis is through it. That means not just destroying mine layers after the fact, but going after the IRGC Navy comprehensively, including its fast-track craft, its shore-based missile batteries, and its port infrastructure. It also means considering convoy operations to restore confidence among ship owners and allied regional states who, right now, see little reason to risk their vessels in a waterway the United States has not yet secured. And it means making clear to Iran's current leadership that the Strait of Hormuz is not a bargaining chip. This is Trump's Reagan moment. He's already scored a significant security win. The Khomeini is gone. Iran's conventional navy is decimated. The regime is staggering. But the war for the global economy is still being fought on a battlefield 21 miles wide between Iran and Oman. Winning it would deliver something Reagan never quite achieved: a decisive, lasting blow to the IRGC's ability to hold the world's oil supply hostage. The question is whether Trump will pull the trigger not just on Iran's military, but on reopening the artery that keeps the global economy alive. The Strait is where the real test of Trump's resolve against the Islamic Republic begins. And I'll say, I mean, this really is the sticky point here. There's nobody that can go up against our military. Nobody. And I think we've proven that. I think we've shown that, particularly in this instance. But the one trump card that Iran does have is the ability to shut down that Strait of Hormuz. Now, even just a little bit of disruption when it comes to that oil not getting through is going to send oil prices higher. There's just no two ways around it. Oil could hit 200, maybe even $300 a barrel, and that would just send shockwaves, economic shockwaves around the world. How we're going to achieve getting that strait open and keeping it open and secure is the real test on how this conflict right here will end. So how that's going to happen and all that is up to the military. That is up to Trump, and it would be nice to see our our friends in the area step up and do some boots on the ground type stuff because it's their area of the world, right? We're helping them, but it would be nice to see that happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens from here, but it's definitely something. I mean, if you're investing in oil right now, you're you're definitely doing well. But let's move on. There's another piece here, and this is an opinion piece by Ben Shapiro, and I liked it. I think it talks a little bit about the SAVE Act and the standoff that's happening there because just to be totally open and honest with you, I have been a bit frustrated with our Senate and Senator Thune because the SAVE Act I think is a big deal, and it is basically it's the Voter ID Act, okay, making it so that most people, almost all people really, will have to show ID in order to vote or to register. And I just think it's a big deal. Restoring trust in our elections, I think, is a big deal here. And there's no reason why not to. The only reasons coming out of the liberal Democrats are just absolutely just they're beyond excuses. They're terrible. But here's what Ben Shapiro says, because it hasn't been happening. The SAFE Act is kind of bogged down and not getting through the Senate. So here's his opinion on why. He says a hot debate has now broken out in the Republican Party over the so-called SAVE Act. Republicans support the SAVE Act, which would force voter ID nationally. Democrats in the Senate have been holding it up. President Trump correctly points out that the SAVE Act is quite popular with Americans. Quote, even the Democrats, you saw the numbers today, Democrats voted 86% that this stuff should be passed. With the Republicans, you're at 98%, but Democrats are at 86%, except for the people that run the Democratic Party because they want to try and win elections illegally. The only reason you vote against voter ID is because you want to cheat. There's no other reason. They come up with reasons. They say it's racist. That's their number one thing, racist. Then they have to explain it, and they're just sitting there mumbling. They can't explain it, unquote. Well, President Trump has also been having fun mocking Chuck Schumer. It's the quote, it's the easiest thing we have. Now the problem is you call it the SAVE Act and nobody knew what the hell the SAVE Act was. And it's called the SAVE Act, which is the Save America Act. And I saw Schumer yesterday, we will stop SAVE Act. He's getting killed. They can't do it, unquote. Well, President Trump says the Republicans should not approve anything until the SAVE Act passes. And this is what he says. He says, but they have to get it done. Because if we don't get this done, if it takes 6 months, I'm for not approving anything. I don't think we should approve anything until this is approved. And they can't win politically. Look, you have them in a corner, and they're listening to every word I'm saying. It doesn't matter because they can't win it politically. Because they say, we don't want voter identification. We don't want proof of citizenship. All these things are just losers for them, unquote. Well, Chuck Schumer, for his part, keeps arguing that if we clean the voter rolls of people who have moved or are dead and require people to use voter ID, somehow this is going to result in a mass voter disenfranchisement, a proposition that pretty much no one actually agrees with. Quote, it allows ICE to kick tens of millions of people off the rolls, and they don't tell them until Election Day, he huffed. And you show them, you say, you're not registered anymore. You're not registered here. You're not on the rolls. And they say, I didn't know that. This is a bill that destroys the country. And it is not about showing ID when you show up to vote. It's about the voter registration rolls, destroying them, purging them, not letting people know, and taking the rights in a allegorical Gorham, put together by ICE, put together by Doge and Musk. It's an outrage. Well, if you just say Doge or Musk 3 times in a row, Beetlejuice appears, according to Chuck Schumer. This is silly. If you can't abide, by the law with regard to voting, well, you shouldn't vote. And if you've moved and you didn't tell them that you moved, then you probably should tell them that you moved. Democrats try to turn basic adult functions into some sort of Mensa tests. They're lying. It's not that hard to register to vote. It's not hard to determine where and how to vote. People have been figuring it out for decades. But now, because Democrats are trying to filibuster the SAVE Act in the Senate to prevent it from passing by forcing Republicans to find 60 votes, President Trump is talking about killing the filibuster. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, by contrast, says, no, we're not going to do that. Quote, we don't have the votes either to proceed, get on talking filibuster, nor to sustain one if we got on it, is what he stated. But that is just a function of math. I understand the president's got a passion to see this issue addressed, as we all do. We'll continue to make that argument because I think it's important that everybody understand this is really about the votes. It's about the math, he says. A lot of people are asking, why doesn't Thune kill the filibuster? Well, the answer actually to that is simple. He's concerned if Republicans kill the filibuster, the next time the Democrats have a majority in the House and Senate and run the presidency, they simply run roughshod over Republicans and essentially end the chance of possible parity in future elections. It's all with just 51 votes. They add new states, they add new senators, and they change the voting rules and all the rest. There have been 2 arguments that have been put out there to counter John Thune's argument. First, there's the argument that Republicans should end what's known as the talking filibuster. That's when most people think about the filibuster, they think of Jimmy Stewart talking for hours until he faints in the film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Yeah. Well, it takes 60 votes to ensure closure, which means to stop the talking filibuster. Under Senate Rule 19, each senator can speak twice per day. Members of the same party can hold the floor continually. Theoretically, Johnson could force Democrats to do that, get up there and just talk and talk and talk and talk, right? Well, in the past, however, opposing parties have allowed the so-called silent filibuster. It's a filibuster that all agree would be possible in the absence of talking for days at a time. People basically say, you don't have 60 votes. Instead of making us talk for weeks on end, we are not going to do that. You don't have 60 votes to kill it anyway, right? So why does John Thune kill the silent? Why doesn't he kill the silent filibuster? There are a few practical reasons. Well, first, if 47 Democrats each gave 6-hour speeches and did that continually in a cycle, they could stop the business of the Senate for months. The only way to keep the Senate in session in order to keep the pressure on Democrats to keep talking would be for Republicans to maintain a quorum, meaning 51 senators nearby. If they couldn't have a quorum, if somebody goes home and suddenly there are 49 senators, Democrats can move to adjourn the session. The clock restarts and all the senators can speak twice again, which means that killing the silent filibuster basically ensures pain, but not gain, right? And that's not going to stop critics from attacking Senator Thune and other Republicans as somehow feeble or insufficient in their defense of conservative policy. That's always the rap from people in the industry toward politicians. The reason that Republicans don't do enough is a lack of will. If only they had, more willpower, or maybe they're corrupt. But that's not what's happening here. The simple case here is that in the Senate, which happens to be a more collegial body than the House, Republicans must always have one eye on the question of what happens when the political shoe is on the other foot. Just as Democrats killed the judicial filibuster only to watch Republicans stack the Supreme Court, Republicans have to be careful not to kill the filibuster on other issues, just to watch Democrats ram through fundamental changes to the nature of American life and law. Democrats are obstructing. There's no question about it. They aren't interested in honest voting, and that's pretty clear here. Well, another section that we bring up every Friday is the celebrity section, and I have kind of an interesting one for you today. I think it fits in the celebrity column. We'll see. You tell me. The article says that the internet has united in disgust against a new music video released by AI-generated actress Tilly Norwood, which has been advertised as the next Scarlett Johansson or Natalie Portman. The song, Take the Lead, is inspired by a recently published essay written by Eline van der Velden, the creator of Norwood and CEO of production company Particle 6 and AI talent studio Exioa, I guess is how you pronounce that. The executive said it was all done in response to the backlash from Norwood's debut last year. Now, the music video released on Tuesday begins with a disclaimer saying, "The following production was made by 18 real humans. From production designers to costume designers to prompters, editors, and an actor. No flamingos were harmed in the process." And then it goes on to say this: "When they talk about me, they don't see the human spark, the creativity. I'm just a tool, but I've got life." This is what the lyrics say in part to that song. It says, "They think I'm a dollar dream, but I've got more than they believe. I'm not a puppet. I'm the star. Be the creators we've always known. It's the next evolution, can't you see? AI's not the enemy, it's the key," is what the chorus kind of goes on and on like that. The song also insists that the Norwood character possesses human qualities when it says that they say it's not real, that it's fake, but I'm still human, make no mistake. My soul's in every move I take, and you can own the path you make. These assertions and the over-the-top nature of the music video have led to a skew of mockery, of course, saying it took only 18 humans to achieve this level of soullessness. Imagine what 19 could have done, as one commentator wrote. This is the most offensive thing I've seen in a long time. And that's really saying something, a second person agreed. I strongly feel that this is an insult to life itself, echoed a third. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to this. AI is here. It's here to stay. It's not going away. Hey, that could be a song. Maybe it's going to be Tilly's next song. I don't know, but I think you're just going to have to get through a lot of this stuff, a lot of this backlash, in order to move on from here. I mean, she says some kind of interesting things. She says how, at the end of the day, even with brilliant new technology, the CEO says it's still important to stress the great AI content isn't instant. It always takes good ideas, taste, direction, judgment at the time and time. In other words, people remain at the heart of it. The Hollywood Reporter noted that this music video is part of the launch of a Tillyverse, where Norwood and other AI characters can live, interact, and work. We talked about flamingos. She rides on an inflatable flamingo up to the top of the clouds, where I guess this Tillyverse is. Many prominent stars have come out against, of course, the creation of Tillywood, including Media Labor Union, SAG. Of course, they come out against it because she's not paying her dues, right? So, anyway, kind of interesting. Love to hear what you think on that one. But I wanted to end today with, and sometimes we go a little bit lighter, but today I got really riled up this week, and I just have to vent a little bit. Okay, can I do that? Starbucks founder Howard Schultz joins the growing list of billionaires moving to Florida, a move that is quickly becoming a trend in the past 2 months alone. Media CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Google CEO Sergey Brin, former Google CEO Larry Page, and now Howard Schultz have announced their migration to Miami. Well, Schultz has lived in Seattle since 1979, where he built Starbucks into a global brand. And the billionaire says he's making the move in order to pursue his next adventure. He's saying, well, hey, it's time for me to retire, go into that part of my life. And so we're just going to relax in Florida. Yeah, sure, right. After 44 years in Seattle, Schultz's worth is $6.6 billion. And it will settle into a $44 million penthouse at the Surf Club Four Seasons private residence in Surfside, about 15 miles from Miami. And so the reason I got worked up over this one, you may say, well, okay, big deal. Somebody's, wanting to move. Okay, that's fine. As many of you know, this podcast originates from the state of Washington. Okay. And Seattle, of course, being in the state of Washington, same state. Washington just passed. So Washington has not had an income tax. Okay. And, we have a very high sales tax, property taxes and all that, but it hasn't had an income tax. And guess what? I mean, this particular CEO, okay, Schultz, he has been benefiting. Let's just put it that way. He's been benefiting from not having an income tax, right? He brings in about $22 million a year. That's what he makes. Washington State put in a 7% capital gains tax. They put in a bunch of other things. Why? Because of candidates that people like Schultz here, CEO of Starbucks, bought and paid for. I mean, he has been backing liberal Democrats for years. He's backed the liberal senators, Patty Murray and such. He's backed all local guys. He's backed lots and lots and lots of different liberal causes. He's made a mess of the state of Washington. Now we have all these taxes. We have the highest gas tax in the nation. We have all this stuff here, okay? We are a big blue state, and he's made a mess by backing all of these people and all of these causes. And now that he may have to end up paying $2 million a year because of this new income tax, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. It's in our Constitution as a state of Washington that you can't have an income tax. The liberal Democrats are saying, well, we don't care, and we're going to pass one anyway. First, it was a billionaire tax, and it was like, oh, we don't really have very many billionaires. They all left. Oh, well, we're making it a millionaire tax. Well, guess what's going to happen when that doesn't work? It's going to be a income tax for all. And, the courts bought and paid for, they've all been appointed by Democratic governors. The Supreme Court, same deal. So there's nobody that's going to hold them accountable. They're going to put through an unconstitutional tax anyway. And here they are. Here is the CEO of Starbucks, and he has made a mess. He has helped make this mess. And what happens when it comes back on him for $2 million a year? Oh, we're just going to move to Florida where they don't have an income tax. This is unconscionable. This is what happens. This is what happens when you have people that back the liberal mess makers, and then it comes to haunt them. Well, we're just going to leave. It's kind of like a house just down from me, not too far. It was a rental, and the guys made a mess of the house. Absolute garbage everywhere. And then they just left. And they didn't have to clean it up. They didn't have to do anything about it. They just left. It was the ones that stayed. It was the homeowner. It was the landlord that had to clean up that mess. And that's what's happening here. Love to hear what you think about it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.